On the morning of January 23, 2008, everything seemed normal at Trinity Evangelical Lutheran Church in Springfield Township, Pennsylvania. Members of the congregation were coming and going, unaware that a tragedy had unfolded inside their church office. At approximately 12:30 p.m., longtime church member Judy Zellner arrived to clean the building, and she walked into a horrifying scene. Rhonda Smith, a 42-year-old part-time church employee, was lying face down in a pool of her own blood with severe head injuries. Judy immediately called 911. Paramedics discovered that Rhonda was found unresponsive but still alive, and they rushed her to the hospital. Later, her family would have to make the heartbreaking decision to remove her from life support. Rhonda Smith was born in Fountain Hill, Pennsylvania on January 17, 1966, to her parents Dorothy and Francis, and she had two brothers as well, Gary and Perry. She was known as a gentle, caring woman who dreamed of becoming a teacher one day. She was a first-generation college graduate and graduated in 1991 from Bloomsburg University with a Bachelor of Science. However, she had struggled with bipolar disorder for a lot of her life, which made steady employment difficult. But her church community really embraced her, and they helped her through financial hardships. Just 3 days before the tragedy, Rhonda had stood before the congregation to thank everyone for their generosity after they had provided her with cash and gift cards during the holidays. She had recently also started working part-time at the church as a secretary, and she was really optimistic about rebuilding her life. Investigators from the Pennsylvania State Police initially had very few clues. Rhonda had been twice in the head, and because there was no weapon at the scene, detectives quickly ruled out that she had taken her own life. An autopsy revealed that one bullet had grazed her head, while the second had penetrated her skull. Detectives believe that the first one incapacitated her, and the second was fired while the perpetrator stood above her. Fragments recovered from the scene indicated that the weapon was a .38 caliber. A forensic examination of the church computer helped establish a timeline. Rhonda logged onto the computer at 9:40 a.m. with her final activity occurring at 10:58 p.m., so police estimated the unaliving happened around 11 a.m., leaving a relatively narrow window to identify anyone that had been at the church that morning. Detectives interviewed church members, visitors, and people close to Rhonda. They investigated a suspicious man who had previously commented that the church would be a good place to rob, and they also questioned men from Rhonda's mental health support group. But each lead eventually fell apart because of alibis or a lack of evidence. The investigation changed direction when Pastor Greg Shreves, who had been away at a conference mentioned a parishioner named Mary Jane Fonder. He described her as a lonely woman who frequently left him lengthy phone messages and appeared to have misinterpreted his kindness as a romantic interest. Basically, she was obsessed with him, and she would even tell people this in less words. At the time of this case, Mary Jane was 65 years old and had attended the church for years. During interviews, detectives learned that she felt overlooked by the congregation, and she was resentful of the support and the attention that Rhonda had received from both Pastor Greg and fellow church members. Phone records showed that Mary Jane had called the church on the morning of the day that Rhonda lost her life. Investigators also discovered that she did own a .38 caliber weapon. But when questioned, Mary Jane claimed that she no longer had possession of the weapon, saying that she had thrown it off a bridge into Lake Nockamixon years earlier after purchasing it in 1993. But that same year, her elderly father, Edward, mysteriously disappeared while under her care. Investigators learned that she had continued cashing his Social Security checks after his disappearance, and although she had been considered the primary suspect, his body was never found and no charges were ever filed. Mary Jane also told police that she had an 11 a.m. hair appointment on the day of the incident. However, salon employees reported that she arrived about 20 minutes late, and she strangely left behind the wig that she had been wearing. Testing on the wig found no powder residue, but forensic analysis of her vehicle revealed some on the steering wheel and gear shift, giving investigators another piece of evidence. The biggest break came weeks later when two fishermen came across the weapon while fishing in Lake Nockamixon. When it was recovered, it was traced back to Mary Jane Fonder, and ballistic testing also conclusively matched the weapon to the bullets that took Rhonda Smith's life. On April 1, 2008, Mary Jane was arrested and charged. Prosecutors argued that the act was fueled by jealousy and obsession, that Mary Jane wanted the pastor's attention, and she grew increasingly resentful of Rhonda's close relationship with both him and the rest of the congregation. The prosecution presented evidence of the recovered weapon, the residue in Mary Jane's car, her suspicious timeline, and her own statements to investigators. On October 30, 2008, a jury found Mary Jane Fonder guilty. She was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Mary Jane continued to maintain her innocence until she passed away from cardiac arrest in prison on June 4, 2018. Meanwhile, the disappearance of her father remains unsolved, leaving many to wonder whether Rhonda Smith was her only victim or whether she was responsible for that as well. This tragedy had a profound impact on the church community. Congregants described it as something that they would never have imagined happening in a place that they considered a sanctuary. Many remembered Rhonda not just for the circumstances of her passing, but for her gratitude, her quiet faith, and her gentle spirit. Pastor Greg Shreves later spoke about how her loss affected the entire congregation, emphasizing that she was a valued member of the church family whose life touched many people.